this is the Folksy Friend, jumping straight into a breakdown and a little bit of commentary based in lore of Amazon's Rings of Power Episode 7. I'm not even going to get into how she should have been cooked alive in that armor. Let's just suspend our disbelief. Well, we know that Isildur is very brave and is, doing the best he can do. We know he can't die here because he is going to be the future king of Gondor. The genuine distress on his face, really, I'm feeling that this has to be Gandalf, or at least a good character, because what would be the point in feeling the distress of injuring the Harfoots even when we're not looking at him? So Khazul, which is the Dwarven language, is supposedly very difficult to learn. The fact that Elrond can understand any of it is pretty impressive, as King Durin says for an elf. As I mentioned in pretty much every video prior, he is called Elrond Half-Elven because he has human blood in his lineage on both sides, his mother and his father's side. So he has enough human blood in him, which is very rare for him to be considered half-elf, even though he is actually more elf than human. But once again, that is the reason why he and his twin brother were able to choose between mortality and immortality. And Elrond chose to remain immortal as an elf, whereas Elros chose to be mortal as a human. And it seems here that he's kind of using that as if to bridge the mistrust between dwarves and elves. As I mentioned in the past, they had a very, very strained relationship. The very early elves hunted the very early dwarves as if they were animals, and that distrust has just gone down through the centuries to the point that it makes it very difficult for them to work together. Not only that, but they are fundamentally opposed to one another. They were created by Aule, as King Durin mentions later. They were created from stone, whereas the elves were created by Iluvatar, the kind of god of gods, directly. And he has a line in the Silmarillion where he says to Aule that there will often be strife between thine and mine. In other words, my kids and your kids, between the children of my adoption and the children of my choosing. So it is very clear from Iluvatar's language that he's not really happy that the dwarves were even made. And because the elves are his ultimate perfect creation, there's always going to be a discord between the elves and the dwarves that is very difficult to overcome. When King Durin says the fate of the elves was decided long ago by those much further seeing, he's either talking about the Valar, or I think more likely Iluvatar himself, the, again, god of gods, because the Valar actually are not 100% sure how things are going to end. They never saw the very end of time, really, within this world. The only one who knows what kind of comes next, especially for the elves, is Iluvatar himself. As I mentioned before, the elves are fundamentally tied to Middle-earth. Their souls will never leave it. So whether or not they fade or they flourish, really it is kind of down to the design of Iluvatar, the god of gods. And I think here Durin is kind of saying there's nothing we can do. If it is time for the elves to start to diminish, if they have to leave Middle-earth, that was decided by the gods. There's nothing we can do about it. Whereas Prince Durin is fighting so hard against that because he has this unusual close friendship with Elrond. Interesting. So he says defy their will. So he's definitely thinking of the Valar here, saying like, we can't go against the Valar because bad things might happen to us. It's kind of interesting that he says that because the dwarves don't really put a lot of faith in the Valar except for their creator, Aule, because he's really the only one that cares about them. The rest of them, especially Aule's wife, Yavanna, actually don't really like that the dwarves were even created. So I think it's kind of interesting that King Durin seems very religiously concerned about what the Valar think, when really it's only Alway. But maybe he just has enough fear in their great power that he just does not want to rock the boat when it comes to the elves. I wonder if that's why Gilgalad just seems so suspicious. He's kind of desperate to hold on to power more so than he is desperate to protect the elves, because he doesn't just have this feeling of, I need to do whatever it takes to protect us. He just is, like I said before, so suspicious in the way he's going about things. He seems to have a kind of either a darker or a more selfish purpose. My heart. Oh, seeing Durin cry. So one thing I have to say I absolutely love about the men of Tolkien's world, they feel their feelings and they're not ashamed to feel their feelings. They are still strong and brave and masculine, but they are allowed to cry when they are sad. And that is just something I'm so glad the show brought in, because that is just so true for the characters of Tolkien's world. This feels a little forced. Again, the rot that is on the leaf is a physical kind of depiction of the darkness that is encroaching on the elves and causing them to feel weaker and fade. But the idea that you can just put some mithril next to it and the darkness will like physically retreat. This is interesting. Making Miriel blind might kind of open the door for her cousin Ar-Pharazôn to start to step in as king. Once again, if this is Gandalf, this just really reminds me of his lines and his feeling that it is not great powerful deeds that keep back evil, but the small acts of common folk. The idea of Nori just giving him an apple, that is a small but beautiful and kind thing that will help him and kind of keep kindled in him a hope for goodness. And as I really hope this is Gandalf, it's going to kind of lead him to see the goodness in this world and not be corrupted by negativity and lust for power in the same way that Saruman is. Has Elrond even been helping? How did he get so disheveled? This is as disheveled as we've ever seen an elf. He just looks like his nightie got a little dirty. I wonder if that last little piece of mithril that Elrond has, the only piece that the elves have right now, will be used to make the one elven ring of power that is made of mithril. This is an interesting kind of thing that we're hearing, because it is said in the Silmarillion that the dwarves are much more sturdy, I guess you could say, and stout, and are able to weather things like pain and illness much better than any species in Middle Earth. So the fact that Prince Durin was kind of a sickly child, I think goes a little bit back to what Elrond was saying, that he is very elfish for a dwarf, that he's kind of unusual as far as dwarves are concerned. And again, the idea of him seeing the little gray beard on the baby, he's thinking of the reincarnation of the line of Durin from king to king to king. So he kind of, maybe in his mind's eye or just, fatherly sleep deprivation, saw the reincarnated soul really in his son, and then he knew that the baby would live. This exchange is very interesting because it reminds me of the exchange between Iluvatar and Alwë when the dwarves were created, but it also speaks a little bit of Melkor, and I'll explain what I mean. When the dwarves were created, Iluvatar goes to Alwë and chews him out, basically saying, "How dare you create something of your own that I did not give you permission to create? What you've created will never be perfect. You had no right to kind of go behind my back and do this." And Alwë explains that he just wanted to create something with his own hands and help form something and teach them his love of smithing and creation, that he was so proud of the world and so happy with it that he was just desperate to share it with another kind of group of creatures. And that's why he created the dwarves. So, what Prince Durin is saying here to King Durin, you stifle any kind of aspiration in me that did not originate with you, feels almost like Aule pushing back against Iluvatar. But the big issue here I'm kind of seeing as well is that this sounds a lot like Melkor or Morgoth, the big bad evil, pushing back to Iluvatar even further back in time, even before Middle-earth was created. Iluvatar reminds Melkor, there's nothing you can do that I have not already thought of. That it is more of a selfish need to overpower, overcome, and create things that he will rule over. Whereas when Aule creates the dwarves, it is more of just this desperate yearning to be the father of these creatures so that he can teach them how amazing the world is. So this exchange between father and son really for me mirrors the exchange that we see between the Valar, who kind of push back against the ultimate god, Iluvatar. Once again, I might be looking way too much into this philosophically, but I feel like the words they're using here, any thought that does not originate in you, sounds almost exactly like the kind of language that we see in the Silmarillion when Aule or Melkor pushes back against Iluvatar. King Durin, his mistrust of the elves is so strong that the idea of Prince Durin feeling like he is a brother to an elf, to King Durin, that is literally betraying dwarfkind. One, these ladies are super creepy, and they do have kind of a Sith choir that follows them around. But two, the staff of the main priestess looks like the Eye of Sauron, and the way they're dressed is very reminiscent to me of the Druids. I'm still not sure if they are out on a mission to hunt down Meteor Man in secret because Sauron, who's hiding somewhere, has told them to do that, or if they're trying to find him for their own purposes, but it's just very clear from their styling that these ladies are no good. Is she a Maiar? I might be wrong here, but as far as I know, there are no humans that can use magic like this. I think she might be either full or part Maiar. This scene of the horse freaking out really reminds me of Brego from the original Lord of the Rings, the horse that belongs to Theoden's son who dies. Once the son dies, the horse just is inconsolable. He gets a horse girl moment with Aragorn, who tells Eowyn the horse needs to be set free. He's lost his rider. He's seen enough war. This scene really reminds me of that. The idea that once a horse that is so close to its rider has lost that rider, they just need to be turned loose. There's no more war left for them. I think Elendil also knows that it's time to let the horse go, but that horse is literally the last part of his son, as far as he knows, that is still around, so he just doesn't want to let Barrett go. If looks could kill, Galadriel would be dead 5 times over. This does track with canon because the Numenorians do come to the elves' aid again. Won't explain why. Probably a show spoiler, but it does track here that Miriel is kind of pledging help to Galadriel and to Middle-earth in general. Again, letting these Tolkien men feel their feelings and be shown grieving and crying it just adds that little bit to the show that makes it feel more Tolkien, because it's one of the most beautiful parts of his work. Oh, he does not look good. Oh, but he's walking. I'm so curious as to what they're going to do with Halbrand after this. I wonder if they will go north and either become men of the hills north of Rohan, or if they will potentially even found Rohan itself. Obviously, they can't stay here in the Southlands, so I do wonder what's going to happen to this group of people. The music, the dialogue, the look on her face. Disa has given me strong evil vibes right here. It's very possible that she just wants to support Durin and tell him not to be distraught over the decision of his father to remove him as crown prince. But like I said before with Celebrimbor, typically when a character in Tolkien's world becomes obsessed with things like wealth or power, it shows that they are not a good person. Something bad is going to happen surrounding them, or they are evil at heart. There's nothing up until this point that has led me to believe that Disa is not a good person, but this scene, it is so intense, especially with the low, eerie background music. I'm just not sure what we're supposed to make of this. Is it the greed of the Mithril or the idea of not becoming queen that is driving her to speak this way? Or is she being influenced by a darker creature? I mean, I don't think she's Sauron, even though he takes many forms, and that would be interesting. But it's just not really sitting right with what we've seen so far of her character for her to act like this. This was clever editing from the trailer to make us think that the priestess had blown that leaf down there when it's different. There he is. Remember, this Balrog is called Durin's Bane. He single-handedly brings down Khazad-dûm. I have to say, when I was watching this episode with my friend, she made a comment that it would be just like her to sleep through all of the hammering and the yelling of the dwarves, but then the second a tiny leaf falls, that's what wakes her up from a century's slumber. Adar did definitely achieve his purpose. He created a home for the orcs. They have created Mordor here. Some point the Black Gate will go up. I just wonder when Sauron comes into the picture. Does he come and take it over from Adar? Or is this a plan of Sauron's that Adar has been implementing this whole time? Oh, come on, show. Do you think we're stupid? We got it. Like it so helpfully told us it's Mordor. Well, this was a very sad episode. There were a lot of tears, and everybody was very unhappy. I hope that they're allowing Galadriel to turn a leaf here and realize that I hope they're going to allow Galadriel to kind of turn over a new leaf here. She does not need to put down her sword. She can still be a warrior, but I'm hoping that the reckless, hot-headed, frankly, stupidity of how she's been acting in the past is over, and that's done. And again, that she and Halbrand do not get too close. I'll be very curious to see if they do end up bringing Celeborn in the future. There's no way he can be dead, because that would absolutely be breaking canon. I don't know if he, I don't know, got bonked on the head and lost his memory, or if he was swept out to sea when Beleriand sunk. I don't know. I'm sure he's out there somewhere, and maybe we just won't see him in this show, or we'll get like a passing reference to it. They just cannot have her with Halbrand. No, 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 no. Overall, I really truly think we're gonna get that reveal of Sauron in the last episode. I'm strongly believing that he is in Eregion with Celebrimbor. he is helping create that forge, and he is kind of guiding what will be the forging of the rings of power, starting with the 3 elven rings, and that piece of mithril Elrond has will become, I believe it's the water ring that is made of mithril, the one that Galadriel actually ends up having, Nenya. And I just want to know what's going on with Gil-galad and frankly Disa in this episode. I just don't know. She gave me the creeps in that scene, and I hope that she's not starting to hunger for power, because that ultimately is going to be a very bad thing. I just want the Balrog to put on some... I'd love it if the Balrog put on an eye mask and just went back down to sleep, but as we know very well, he's going to destroy Khazad-dûm. What King Durin said about digging too deep. What King Durin said about digging too deep and digging into rock that does not support it, he was right. I know that Prince Durin is coming from a place of love and wanting to bring the dwarves forward, but ultimately he is not listening to the fears of the king. And unfortunately, everyone is going to pay the price in Khazad-dûm for that. We'll just have to wait to see what happens in the episode next week, the finale. Hopefully it is not anything that's going to leave a terrible taste in our mouths. Hopefully it's going to end with an epic Sauron reveal and leave us wanting more. That is hoping. And once again, truly, truly hoping that Galadriel is kind of changing here, because I'd kind of written her off as of last episode, so we're just going to have to see. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown with some of my commentary of Rings of Power Episode 7. Thanks for spending some time with me, the folksy friend.